Hi guys, Jamie from Perma Performance here. So there's a long list of bodyweight exercises to improve on-bike performance. So where do we start? So in this session today, hopefully we're going to run through a full body workout, mainly focused on strength and endurance. So typically between those 10 to 15 reps, maybe a little bit more, and hopefully we can put that into a session framework that is most appropriate for you. So primarily we're going to be looking at some compound movements and some key movements to help develop some of those structural qualities which can help your on-bike performance. So for each exercise, I'm going to give you some tips and pointers and also some progressions and regressions for each exercise. So hopefully we can find the most appropriate start point for you. Okay, so when we're thinking about a full body routine at home, we want to make sure that we are achieving balance within our workout. So we want to think about working on the anterior chain, so muscles on the front, and posterior chain, like muscles on the back, and making sure we're adding some different movements, so side to side and some rotations. If you think about your position on the bike, we're kind of stuck in this fixed position. So we want to leverage some different movements which will hopefully improve your all-round athleticism and strength. So a good kind of framework to break this down is to think about movements in terms of like a push, a pull, a squat and a hinge, and a rotate. So if you cover those patterns, then you're in a pretty good place in terms of your coverage of a full body session. Okay, so obviously this is focusing on a strength endurance kind of stimulus, so 10 to 15 reps. And the way we can kind of measure our responses to training is using RPE, so something called ratings of perceived exertion. So if this exercise selection or a rep scheme, if you're working at sort of a 9 or 10 out RPE, then it's obviously very challenging for you. So 10 out of 10 being the most difficult. If it's very comfortable, saying like a 4 or 5 out of 10, and you're performing 15 reps on a squat, then probably increasing more reps is not going to give you enough of a stimulus. So stay tuned for maybe our next video where we can look at some producing maximal force, or for some of the things that we can do at home where we can really improve our strength development with some of the tools and kit we can use at home. So first up is a bodyweight squat. So we use the bodyweight squat to develop leg strength, specifically quads. In terms of position, we want to think about feet being about shoulder width apart. And that just allows our pelvis to kind of sit between our legs. And we ideally want to get just below parallel, or hips towards just below the knees. So what we want to think about here is keeping your torso up nice and tall. So what we used here is like a wedge underneath my heels, but you can use a couple of books at home, and that just allows for more ankle range of motion. So it means that you can just keep your torso up nice and tall. So as we come down, nice and controlled descent, we don't want to rush that. So it means we've got a nice stable base and we can just push through the floor and stand up nice and tall. So also bear in mind that your torso position, you want to try and keep nice and upright, and a way that can kind of help improve that is a counterbalance. So using something out in front of the body like a weight, and that just gives you something to focus on. And again, it keeps a good kind of nice stable position and balanced position where your torso is nice and upright and you can finish the movement nice and tall. So here in the video, I'm using a kettlebell. You can use any kind of weighted object, so a bag of flour is fine. It just helps you keep an external focus and keep the torso upright and nice and tall. Cool, so second exercise is a push-up. So it just gives a bit of a break from the lower body and move to an upper body exercise. So just going to set yourself in a push-up position, so hands out about shoulder width apart, and just allow the elbows to keep nice and close to the body. So you want to be able to sit the chest in between the hands and then push away from the ground. So nice forceful push. Again, control the descent so the chest gets close to the floor, again, or wherever is comfortable for you, and then just push away nice and forcefully. Also, you'll see squeeze the glutes and keep the rib cage down towards the hip. So just a nice strong pillar from head to toe. So if you're having a difficult time with the standard press up off the floor, then you can elevate the position. So you can use a bench or a chair or something where it's just a little bit taller. And again, the same technical components apply. So just make sure you've got a good position to push from. Again, nice controlled descent, touch the bench or chair, and then just push away nice and forcefully. So the benefit here, if you're kind of slouching on the handlebars, or you feel yourself getting tired for the upper body when you're holding that position, so it's just a good kind of exercise to help build up some of that upper body strength and improve our overall athleticism. The third exercise was the hamstring bridge. So heel onto, again, a raised bench or chair. We want to make sure we're digging our heel into that object and making sure as we drive into the bench or the chair that we are lifting our hips up nice and tall. So we're getting full extension of the hips, squeeze the glute in the back of the leg. If we want to make this a bit tougher and a longer muscle length, we just kind of slide a little bit further down and extend the knee a little bit more, and that will isolate the hamstring a little bit more. If you want to focus more on glute and posterior chain, you kind of shuffle a little bit closer towards the bench and more of a deeper knee angle. So one of the key things to think about with this is making sure that we keep good connection between our ribs and our hips. So as you can see here, I'm looking down the body. It's just a kind of a cue to keep the rib cage close towards my hips and keep that almost nice cylinder position. If we start to struggle and we start to arch our lower back, it just means that we're probably struggling to get full hip extension. So we're not working the hamstring and the hip as much as possible. So again, look down the body, and then if you feel like your neck's getting a little bit tight, you can just rest your head back, but just give yourself a quick check to make sure those ribs are in line with the hips. So our fourth exercise is the banded row, okay? So we're adding a little bit of rotation into this. So we're reaching with the band. So we fix the band onto a point. Again, make sure you've got a nice solid fitting. We don't want anything coming off the shelf and flying at you in the face. So fix the fitting, strong grip with the band, and then pull towards the rib cage, almost pulling into your side pocket. Keep the elbow nice and close, so reach forward, allow the scapula or the shoulder blade to almost roll across the rib cage and reach forward. And then just pull back and really extend and keep a nice high chest. So the reason why we might kind of leverage this movement, again, is a little bit of rotation, so a bit of thoracic rotation. Again, we're usually stuck in this position when we're on a bike. So by leveraging some of those movements, it can help just kind of free up a little bit in terms of the upper back. And also, again, from a flexion point of view, we kind of find ourselves in that position quite a bit. So it's good to work on that pulling motion and using sort of our lats to pull back and retract our shoulders and get in a nice strong position with that movement. So our fifth exercise, again, was a lower body movement. It was a split squat into a side lunge. And why we like to use this movement is just a different range of motion, and it just opens up different areas of the hip. So a great mobility drill and a great way to explore different corners within those movements, okay? So again, once we're on a bike, we're kind of fixed in this position front to back. So by going side to side and open up the hips and adductors, it can be a really good way to kind of keep nice healthy hips. Cool, so with the split squat, when we step back, we're trying to keep our rib cage over our front leg, and so just nice and stable over that front leg, and stand nice and tall and lock it out, and then we're going to step out to the side. So as you can see, I step out to the side and give myself a big enough step where I can keep my hips over my base of support and a nice strong footing so I can push back to the midline. So the sixth exercise is a dead bug. So the reason why it's called that is you look a bit like a dead bug. Legs up in the air, arms up in the air. You want to keep, we used the ball in this video, but you can use anything that kind of keeps a bit of pressure between the leg and the arm. And whilst the free leg on the arm is moving outwards away from the body and just creating what we call extension, but we're trying to keep the rib cage close towards the hip. So you can see there's no space underneath my lower back here or my mid back. So I'm trying to keep that tension and keeping all that tension through the midsection and abs. And that's where you'll start to feel this movement. As you see, there's a little bit of a shake there because I'm working really, really hard. So it's important to drive intent with this movement. Otherwise, it's probably a little bit too easy if you don't drive intent and put force into that object. Also, if you have a little bit of neck discomfort, it's good to put like a cushion or a couple of books underneath your head. Again, it just stops you from straining your neck. So the last exercise, again, is a bit more of a core exercise, isometric, where we're holding this static contraction. You've probably seen this before, it's a plank. Just the key things to think about is making sure that our hips don't kind of sink and we're not getting this extension for our lower back. So we'll make sure, as you see, I push through the floor, so my elbows are digging into the floor. So we're protracting our shoulder blades, pushing into the floor, and then keeping a nice hollow position through the torso. So you see again, the rib cage, glutes, hips are all in a nice straight, strong pillar. And we're just gonna hold that position. It's a little bit different from the reps, so we're gonna hold it between 30 to 45 seconds and see how you get on with that. You can increase the time if you find that a little bit too easy. So it's important to keep those elbows underneath your shoulders. They're not too wide, not too narrow, but a nice strong position. Elbows underneath shoulders, feet together. Again, that just keeps a nice solid straight line between head to toe. Thanks for watching the video, guys. Hopefully that was some helpful tips for bodyweight exercises at home. For more info, check out the links below, and also check out Cycle Exchange for pre-owned performance bikes.